All right, for this first demo, I'm going to just kind of get you started on how I might, approach this project. So the first thing is, of course, that we would want to think about, a font to start with. Now, I recommend you keep it simple at first and try and find a font or a typeface that has a large family. One of my favorites to start with is a font called Helvetica Neue, and you'll see that it has a pretty big font, a pretty big family of styles. These are what's called styles. So condensed is a style, ultralight's a style, and so on. Weights are styles like bold, bold italic, and so on. So it gives you somewhere to start straight away without having to worry about, you know, trying to worry about picking a font. You're just really looking for the ability to make a contrast. So, and it saves you a lot of time too. As you know from the previous project, looking for the right font is a task, and it can take quite a bit of time. So here I'm trying to just, help you out by saying just find a font that, a typeface, I should say, that has a large family. Just to kind of give you a really quick idea on how typefaces are. Type comes with a variety of terminology, and it gets down everything from the actual type itself all the way down to letter forms and the individual parts of letter forms. We'll talk about that more when you come to typography class. But for now, a type family would be Helvetica Neue. It's a family, okay? Within the family, you have type faces. And a typeface is Helvetica Bold, for example. Well, let's take a look at that, right? So a typeface is bold, it's regular, it's ultralight, okay? A style is is condensed, okay? So condensed is a style. Italic is a style, okay? So that's the difference. So type family, the big picture, right? A typeface is regular. A type style is italic, okay? So that's the terminology. Now the term font comes from back in the day, and again we'll talk more about this in typography, when typefaces were actually set using individual letter forms, and the size of the block that the letter form was on was the font size. And back even in the digital days before PostScript, we had, if you wanted to buy Helvetica 24 point, that was a font. And it wasn't scalable. It was 24 point. So you would buy Helvetica 18 point. That was a font. And so, and then again, within all of these different, terminology, there was still a typeface, Helvetica, and so on. The font referred to the specific size. This got blurry when we reached the point of scalable fonts. This was made possible by PostScript, and PostScript allows a font size to be scalable. So instead of 32 being a font size, 51 being a font size, that's still technically correct. So if you want to use the correct terminology, Helvetica is a typeface, 51 points is the font size. Okay, so that just, kind of throws out a little bit of information there for you. If you want more information on that, you can go on to my 155 typography class online resources, and in project one, there's a whole list of a whole list of little lectures and demos on all of this stuff. So anyhow, getting back to reality here, we now have we have a few typefaces selected. These are some of my favorites for working with because of the fact that they have options. Gill Sans is a great option. It has a fairly reasonable family. Myriad Pro, I like Myriad Pro a lot. It's got a big family. This would be, about as big a family as you're going to find on any given typeface. And then for a contrast between a sans serif font and a serif font, Baskerville is not a bad option. It has a reasonable amount of scale. The good thing about Baskerville is that it has its bold is quite a bit larger than its regular, whereas Helvetica Neue, its bold isn't significantly greater than its regular. So it has, of the serif fonts, Baskerville is a reasonable choice. It also has a nice, thick and thin relationship, the stroke versus the hairline. It has a pretty serif with a nice bracket. That little rounded shape in there is called a bracket. So it's a decently elegant serif font. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for contrast. So that being said, we picked our fonts. Now it's time to get started on what to do with them. So I'm going to just pick my Helvetica for starters, and I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to paste it into a new document that's 600 by 600. And I'm going to start fussing around. Okay. Now, first thing, of course, we think about contrast, right? And again, remember that contrast, we started out, large, small, black, white, way back in project 2 and 3. And those concepts aren't going away, right? We're still sticking with that stuff. So let's go with a bold, just to get started. And then this is in an ultra light. So we have a nice weight contrast. I'm going to make both of these quite a bit larger so that we can, work a little bit more dramatically with them, okay? So we have some options here, right? Right now we have upper and lower case. We could think about all uppercase, so let's just go ahead and duplicate that. And I'm going to just make everything uppercase just to see what happens. Okay. Now the C probably would stay smaller, right? So we would probably just go right here and sort of see what happens. Now, this is the first thing you start looking at and going, okay, what do the letters look like in that typeface and the letters that you have in the name, right? Some typefaces, the letters don't look so good. Some look better in uppercase. Some look better in uppercase if it's light, not so great if it's bold. So there's a variety of ways of thinking about this. I personally am looking at this and I'm not really enjoying the way the letters are working in all cap, whereas Mary, it kind of works okay. So I'm going to go back to my lowercase for this. I think that just looks a little bit prettier. And it gives us something to do. All right, so now that I've got that going, I'm going to delete this stuff here, and we're going to just work with one. Okay, so we have some similarities here, right? Remember similarity? We have some repetition. We have the M's in repetition. So we have some options for lining things up, and you just have to be aware of these kinds of opportunities when you get started. So, maybe we make McMurray quite a bit larger, and maybe we make Mary a little smaller. Let's just sort of see what happens here. And you start looking for some options. Okay? Because you don't know where this is going to go. One of the things I see straight away, though, is an MMCM. And so that's something that I would go, well, that might be something worth exploring at some point. But for now, we're just going to work with this. So, okay, that could work, right? You know, we could stick it in here somewhere, maybe. The nesting concept, right? We could think about contrast in black and white. So maybe we add a shape, you know, and we make it black, and we send it to the back, and we find Mary, and we make her white, and see what happens. So now let's see, you know, maybe stick this here, kind of see what happens. Maybe Mary gets big, you know, maybe Mary gets really big. Well, maybe that's too big. How about 150? And then we play around with that. Say, well, okay, well, it might be something there. I'd save that, right? Okay, so now we got something going, all right? I might have even saved it when I just had the little M and the little Mary and the big Mary. I probably would have saved that. Remember that I'm looking for ideas here on this first part of the project. I don't necessarily care about refinement. I care more about you trying a lot of different things. So I would save this, okay? Then I'd go and I'd try something else. I'd go and maybe I'd make the black box down here, and maybe I'd take Mary and I'd, hello Mary, thank you. I'd take Mary and put her on top. Maybe make her black again. And maybe make Mary white. And maybe set Mary down here. Now we have an issue, right, with the descender. So setting a baseline down on that isn't going to work, right? Because we've got that little descender for the Y right there, right? So maybe we need to do something like that. You know, and when you bleed something off like this, it makes it interesting, right? So you want it to be just about right. Remember I was talking about craftsmanship a little while back? Something like that would be poor craftsmanship, because see the little black edges on there? It's not quite right? You want it to be exactly, off there. And then you could say, well, maybe I will take this and I will set the tracking or the letter spacing, maybe, tighten that up, see what happens. Move that over here. Maybe scale the box a little bit here, and we'll scoot that over there. And then maybe we make Mary bigger yet. Maybe she becomes, and at this point in the game, we'll probably want to start playing around with the scale tool a little bit and see what happens, right? Okay, so maybe we make that a little bit bigger. And then we start to play around a little bit with how that plays along with this. And then we save it again. All right, so say, okay, that's cool. Now I'm done. Maybe I'm done with this part of it now. Now it's time to try something different. So maybe we turn off our black box for a moment, and we make Murray, maybe we just delete this one and we go back to our other selection, and maybe we pick the serif font and copy that and paste that over onto our other design. And maybe we go to a bold on this, and maybe we don't go to a bold. Maybe it looks better in semi-bold. And maybe Mary needs to get smaller. So maybe now we go and we scale Mary down a little bit. Move her over a little bit. And maybe scale her down a little bit more and move her over a little bit. And kind of scoot her down into that little negative space there a little bit, and scoot her down using the arrow keys. And you go, nah, that ain't working. So now you use your arrow keys and you move it up a little bit and see what happens, right? So then you go, well, maybe. And then maybe we scoot it down a little bit more because it's just not happy there, right? And this is going to happen, right? You're not always going to have this be, it's not always going to work. experiments often don't. That's the whole purpose. But I would save this now anyway. I would just save, okay, bang, moving on. Now I might look at the MCM, and I'm going to just duplicate this for a second here. Oh, yeah, that's the problem. We can't do that. All right, now we do this. And let's see what I'm going to do here. Okay, hold on a second. Oh, there we go. All right, had the wrong tool on. All right, I'm going to just duplicate that for a second, put the whole deal down here, and I'm going to just kind of scoot this over here and get rid of that. And maybe, you know what? Maybe I just start working with that for a second. I don't necessarily, I'm going to just scoot Mary over here for a moment, and I look at this and go, you know, there might be something here, you know? So let me go play around with a different font. We had this little library of fonts here, right? So let's try old Gill Sans. Nah, let's not try Gill Sans. Let's try Myriad Pro. And let's go to bold. And, you know, maybe not. Maybe that's just not going to happen there. Maybe Gill Sans is a better choice. Let's try that and see what happens with bold. And let's make it really big. Let's kind of play with this for a second and see what happens. All right. And then maybe you go, let's tighten up that tracking some. And maybe what else can we do here? Let's see. Try something else here. And all I'm doing here is I'm just sort of fussing a little bit with the way that might look. Now there's another choice here that we could do, and there's an extra bold in Gill. That's kind of pretty. How about Gill Sans? Where we go? Extra bold, ultra bold it's called. You know, and sometimes doing something like this can, you know, yeah, it kind of needs space, doesn't it, right? Hello. Cursor, thank you very much. Open that back up again a little teeny bit. Okay, so you see what I'm doing, right? I'm just fussing with these little teeny things. And I'm like, well, that could work, right? And then let's turn our black box back on and play around with this a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to just stick the black box here. We're going to take the MCM. We're going to scale it down a little bit. And we're going to make it white so we can see what the heck we're doing. White, thank you very much. And we're going to try a little, thank you, a little bit more. And that looks about right. And then we start playing around with that a little bit, right? And sort of see what happens, you know. I'd probably save both of those. I'd save it at the top. I'd save it at the bottom. Then you start looking at it going, well, maybe I could rotate it, all right? And kind of rotate a little bit, see what happens. Rotate a little bit more. Move it into the picture and then go, well, I'll save that. And then I'll go in here and I'll take the box and I'll scale it a little bit more here. Just to kind of maybe give that a little edge. Maybe there's a little too much white going on there. Okay, now we take this dude and we scoot him down and over. I'm using my arrow keys, right? Because I can very precisely move things around. I'd save that, you know? So those are the ways that you could approach this, you know? You're thinking about fonts, typefaces, You're thinking about font size. You're thinking about style, extra light versus bold. We haven't even tried an italic yet, right? So there's a whole lot of things that we could do with this. And that's how I would approach this, okay? So those are sort of the tools that you want to start thinking about as you begin to approach the project. So hopefully that will kind of get you started in a mindset and see what happens, okay? Alrighty, kids, have at it.